not without a sense of humor. I remember one night at his skull session, he says, don't try to make your case by an over-invocation of legal history. That's too much like oxtail soup. That's going too far back to find something good. He was not without a redeeming sense of humor. Now, I said about, you mustn't make the talk, you mustn't have the conference, you mustn't make the speech, you mustn't write the song, unless it's an ice pick, an ice axe, to break up the frozen sea within us. What do I mean by applying that to the Nuremberg trials? I lectured at synagogues after Nuremberg, from Portland, Maine, down to Key West, Florida. And I always found I had the same trouble when I would say the systematic persecution and the killing of 6 million Jews. I'd look at the faces, it made no impact whatsoever. It was like saying 6 million Suzuki Sumarais, like saying 6 million billiard balls. It didn't reach them. But what would reach them was when you would tell them about Anne Frank, a child girl in her teens, trembling on the threshold of destruction. That reached them. That's the ice pick. Now, another example would be the testimony of Ohlendorf, and Witt has spoken to that in some degree already. Ohlendorf was in civvies when I saw him. A mild-mannered man, diminutive, not without his own special breed of charm, cool, laid back. You might say the vice president of the bank in charge of the loan department. And he was asked, how many people were your Einsatzgruppen responsible for the systematic killing of? He hesitated, he was thoughtful. He said, well, it was somewhere between 290,000 and 300,000. Small smile playing around the lips. You must allow me a margin of error. Then it was pointed out that there were other special action groups that followed the armies into the east that claimed more than his quota, 290 to 300. He spat back at you. He said, but my methods were more efficient. What do you mean they were more efficient? He said they used gas bans. And toward the end of the war, it became harder and harder with the disorganization of the war planned efforts to get replacement parts for the gas bans. And we would tell the people they were just being relocated, but they knew. And the wailing would begin when these vans were carried through the countryside. The German civil population would hear it, and it depressed their morale. Gas banning was hard on the German civil population. My methods were more efficient. What do you mean more efficient? After my men shot them, I allowed them to shovel dirt in them, relax their nerves. You might say I did it out of considerations of humanity. Now I know, and you know, that in every part of the world, whether it's under the Southern Stars or the Northern Cross, there are people in every community, serial killers, that are thrown up, spewed out of the bowels of the earth. There are serious serial killers, psychotics. That's true all over the world. We have them in Wisconsin, where they eat the flesh of their victims. You know what I'm talking about. That's true all over the world. But now this Ohlendorf was different. He was not a sporadic, psychotic, thrown up accidentally by cosmic forces. This was the finest flower of Nazi civilization. It was designed to breed the Ohlendorfs of the world. And I ask you to consider briefly, if they had got the V-weapons program operational 6 months earlier and had shattered those invasion forts from which we mounted Operation Overlord, would we ever have been able to do it? And if not, if they had carried out their final plan, lawless seizure of power in Germany, and to use it as a springboard from which to dominate the world, they would be in charge of your law schools, your schools of theology. Not only that, but the coffee clutches and the backyard fence and the PTA, because they were the mobilized masters of the moronic mind. And you can almost pardon the hordes, the Huns of the Germans. What really breaks your heart was when you would look in the dock and see not only the lawyer Ohlendorf, but the lawyer Frick and the lawyer Hans Frank, It was the treason of the intellectual classes. And the times you would leave Erfurt and Weimar and look at those beautiful German statutes, Liebe, Liebe, Leben und Licht, light, love, and life, and realize that the great composers of music sprang from the side of Germany and from her loins. And you would ask yourself this baffling question: how could they attend a string concert in the afternoon and at night be outriders for Hitler and then the concentration camps and use the concentration camp as an instrument of national policy? They not only turned grandmothers and mothers, but grandchildren into soap. This was a difference with a distinction, their criminality as it seems to me. And I would submit finally that we have not, of course, suppressed all aggressive wars around the world. But isn't it better, even if we cannot suppress, inhibit, or banish them from the face of the earth, isn't it important and gratifying that sometime in our long, painful climb up from the caves to the cities and the semblance of civilization, that we have stood up and said, even if we cannot abolish it, we condemn it. We condemn it. In our condemnation, we have crystallized our conscience. And from now on, it will be easier for those so minded to condemn the aggression into Kuwait than it would be before the Nuremberg trial. It may be that we lack political will, but Nuremberg couldn't do everything. Something had to be left for you and your children and the ongoing life of reason. The work is undone. And lastly, I responded very positively to Professor Hilberg's point about international law does not consist of just a set of treaties and compacts and assurances. It also has its invisible line of growth. The most beautiful thing about the common law, as a school teacher to me, is its line of growth. The urge of the acorn to become an oak. As Roger J. Traynor, that magnificent magistrate from California, once said, the common law is not finished, and with luck, it never will be. Why cannot the same be true of international law? It grows, but invisibly. As one of my colleagues said this morning, with glacial speed. It's like the growth of a coral reef. It's invisible, but verifiable. But every now and then, and you have seen it on TV, you can see a volcanic island being born. You can see the upthrust, and they catch it on cameras. Nuremberg was such a moment where the life of reason leapt forward and took high ground and held it. If this is so, we can narrow the gap between where we are and where we want to be. And it will not be the dusk, it may yet be the dawn of the gods.